When I was a wee lad, I always loved to draw. I'd always be drawing my favourite cartoon characters, like The Simpsons for example. And to me, back then, the more the drawing looked like what it was I was drawing, then the better the drawing was. And a lot of people who aren't involved in creating art themselves, you know, the civilians, they also share this idea that a good drawing is a drawing that looks like what it is the artist set out to draw. Usually on a scale from, that looks like a child's drawing, I could do that, to, wow, that looks like a photograph, I can't believe what I'm seeing. Now, as a child learning to draw, I adopted this idea, and it was proven through the many times when I'd show my drawings to family and friends. The further I was along this scale, the better the reaction I would get. It made sense for me to try my best to get my drawings to look as realistic as possible, and in turn, I'd receive more praise and compliments. All of which ingrained in me a level of confidence. I was good at something, and drawing soon became my main interest. So as time went on, I was convinced that I was good at drawing, and so that just made me want to do more of it. And in school, I was the kid who was known for drawing, and this just carried on, to be honest, although I had phases where I wouldn't draw as much and instead I'd just spend too much time playing video games or going out and getting up to no good. Eventually I'd always come back to it, and it was always something I enjoyed doing. This notion that a good drawing is a realistic drawing would stick around for a long time, and in college I discovered a style of art that is referred to as hyperrealism, and I was just amazed. I was fascinated by artists who could create something so detailed and lifelike. Now, there's a lot of mixed opinions when it comes to this style of art, but that's the beauty of art, right? It's subjective, so feel free to comment and leave your opinion, but I'm sorry to say, it is just your opinion. If you watched the video that I made in which I discuss realistic drawing, you'll know that Mortimer had a lot to say on the subject, but regardless of his criticism, I do still find this style of art very impressive, and I admire the skill and technique that's involved in being able to create drawings like that. I don't think I ever reached that hyper-realistic level, nor did I really try to. I kind of got to a level of realism that I was happy with, and so I just started creating more drawings. I loved the process, you know, I found it quite therapeutic to just sit down and draw something, especially in the way that I was approaching my drawings. I've made some videos on this in the past about how I would draw back then. To put it simply, I would draw what I see, or saw actually if I'm talking past tense. I would always prefer drawing from reference as opposed to drawing from my imagination. Most of the time I had an image of something I wanted to draw in front of me, and I'd always look for a high resolution image so that I could see all of the detail, and then I'd give my best attempt at recreating that detail. A lot of the time, I wouldn't even make a preliminary sketch or outline. I'd just jump right in, starting in one area and drawing from there. And I never realised that this was quite uncommon until I started making YouTube videos and people would leave comments, like people would say that I was a human printer, which I get, right? Because when viewed in a time lapse, the image does just seem to appear and reveal itself as I go. I don't want to talk too much about my process here because I've made plenty of videos in which I do that. Instead, I want to try and map out these stages in which I developed as an artist, and also how I intend to develop further, which is obviously ongoing, right? I mean, I'm only 28, hopefully there's many more years ahead of me, years of progress. I say only 28, but that's quite old. I started YouTube maybe around 10 years ago now. I've posted a lot of videos onto YouTube over those years, and it's fair to say that I've come a long way since I first started. I used to make a lot of content on the subject of realistic drawing, but eventually that slowed down and I began to create videos on different subjects such as perspective drawing and anatomy. Now, my development as an artist was the main catalyst for this gradual transition regarding the content I created. If I'm speaking as a YouTuber, I'd say that this probably wasn't the best move in terms of views and growth on the platform, given that I had already established an audience for the content I was previously making. But as an artist who was getting tired of doing the same things, I'd say that it was a good move, a move that had to be made, in fact. You see, I felt a bit restricted when it came to the art that I could create, and it was clearly hindering my development as an artist. Although I took a lot of satisfaction from helping others create these realistic drawings, I, myself, wasn't learning anything new, and for someone like myself who enjoys learning new things, I just had to change things up. I clearly had an interest for perspective drawing, something that I discovered when studying architecture, and so I started there. And learning something new, like perspective, was a breath of fresh air. I quickly became obsessed with everything involved in drawing that way. It also complemented my architectural work. In retrospect, I'm glad I made the decision to follow my interests as opposed to sticking with something that I was slowly losing some love for. I still enjoy creating these realistic pencil drawings, especially now that I don't do it all the time, but for me, there had to be something else. And again, that probably makes me a bad YouTuber. You know, why would you deviate from something that's working in terms of views and growth? Well, the answer is because it wasn't working for me, and although it's nice to get more views on the videos you make, it's not why I'm here, you know, it's not the sole reason for doing this. And I want to emphasize here how important it is to follow your interests, because in order to be good at something, you have to be interested, you have to want to improve. If there is a genuine desire to do something for a good reason, if for example it will help you develop as a person and then in turn help others, then it's worth being explored. It's an approach that to some extent I've tried to take with the content that I create on this channel. Everything that I have an interest in has always informed the videos that I make here. That's why I made a video and plan on making more videos in which I learn about using Blender to create art. You know, I've never been the type to not explore new ideas because I need to stay in my lane. Learning and discovering new things is what makes life so exciting. I think I'm saying all of this because I've recently been reading Leonardo da Vinci's biography by Walter Isaacson, and he was a man who was relentlessly curious. You know, he would always be learning new things. Although that wasn't always to his benefit because there was often a lack of focus which resulted in a lot of uncompleted projects, but you know, he was a polymath, he was skilled in all different areas. My point here is that you can see all of these new things as distractions or as opportunities, and I'm glad I took the opportunity to explore and learn more about perspective drawing as opposed to just continuing to do what I was doing at that time. And now here we are in 2025, and I've come quite a long way with it since then through also making a lot of videos on the subject, and so now I have an audience who also share an interest for perspective drawing. There's plenty of people on YouTube and also people supporting me on Patreon who want to learn. I've just started putting out some videos for my new beginner course called Simple Perspective, and again in terms of development I'm putting a lot of effort into these. I want to make them entertaining as well as informative, and I also look at these videos I create as a form of art. You're probably all familiar with Boxman by now. He's featured in most of my videos these days. Now, since we are on the subject of improving, I'll also discuss some of the things that I am looking to get better at this year, and of course, leave some comments down below and let me know what you are aiming to get better at as well. So a lot of you who watch my videos will be familiar with this book. This is How to Draw by Scott Robertson, and it's a book that I've referenced and recommended many times on the channel. It's also one of the first books that got me hooked on drawing in perspective, but the reason I'm showing you that is because he also has a second book, and this is one that I haven't owned until recently. You know, this was on my Christmas list and, well, Santa Claus delivered, and so now I'm spending some time learning from this book, which is titled How to Render. As the name suggests, this book is all about rendering a drawing. It covers various methods for achieving realistic representations of objects, emphasizing the use of light, shadow, and material properties. I'm going to learn as much as I can from this book so that when I create a drawing in perspective, I can then apply what I learn to improve how I go about rendering those drawings. I'd also like to spend some more time using Blender to create art this year, or even to improve these videos I make. I made one video last year where I was using it for the first time and I really enjoyed doing that, so I'd definitely like to do more of that. I'd also like to create some more videos on anatomy. Some of you will be familiar with a series of videos I used to make called study sessions, and this was a way for me to document my own journey in learning something new. Anatomy is something that I could do to learn more about to get better at drawing people, and so there's a chance that I'll make more of those. Whilst all of these videos that I make are obviously related to my own interests, I always want them to be of use to others as well. You know, like I want to provide some value, and I usually do that through teaching what I have taught myself or what I'm in the process of learning. And so in some sense I'm documenting my own progress whilst at the same time hopefully assisting you in doing the same. There's a lot to do, but I'm grateful that I get to do it. I feel as though I have an overwhelming amount of things to learn and get better at, and the reason why I often struggle with this and find it overwhelming is because I'm very aware of the things that I don't know and the things that I need to improve upon. And whilst that's important to recognise in order to progress, it can sometimes lead to self-doubt. We know our own limitations better than anyone, yet on the other hand, we know what we are good at, and so that's also important to consider in order to quell that self-defeating voice in your head. Also, what else is there to do? Is it better to not try and be hopelessly waiting around until your inevitable death, or do we seize the moment and strive to improve despite that? Anyways, before I get too deep, over the course of this year, I do intend to make some more videos in which I will document my learnings and progress, and if you share similar interests, you know, they should also be useful to you as well. With all that being said, thank you for watching, and I will see you in the next one.